Afternoon. Hey, Teri. How's it going?
Good, good. I'm good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. I gotta say,
Good.
I can't.
That's
I can't complain. The sun is out. Um,
true.
I'm. I'm here in a little box where the temperature is not too bad. It's in the basement, so it could be a whole lot worse. I could be back out in the garden, and
I hear it's pretty warm actually outside. I'm in a nice, cool, air-conditioned office, so I'm all
air
good.
conditioning.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fancy. Ain't got no air conditioning here, but but anyway, we are where we are, and today we are going to be talking about how not to suck at self tapes.
Yeah.
Because I know that you get a lot of questions about this, and I know that I get to help a lot of people with their self tapes. As a reader, people often come to me and say, "Oh, Mark, could you read this character for me?" And so then I get to see their self tape setup, and I try to. I'm very careful about what I say because I'm being there just as a reader and not as a consultant. So
Right.
I'm not going to say anything about their self tape setup or their acting or anything if they're not paying me. So
Right.
I'm not there. I'm not there for that. I'm just volunteer
You're
to be
just
a reader.
reading.
Exactly, just a
Exactly.
reader. So that will be one of my questions that comes up. But the first one I've got is, first of all, for those who might not know, what is a self tape?
Self-tape is a way for casting to actually. Oh, you know what? I'm getting some feedback. Do you hear it? I'm getting.
No,
I am
I,
actually hearing
you're hearing your
myself
own
a
voice.
delay. Yeah.
Ah,
So
okay.
I wonder
Technical
what
echo.
that's all about.
You know what I could do probably is maybe put you through my headphones, and then I'll hear only you. You won't be able to hear yourself. So I'll try to set that up right now. Let's see.
Sorry about
Sorry
that.
about this, folks. Just set this up. So let's see. Audio input is correct, and I want to put the speakers on this. All right. So now you should be able to hear yourself.
Okay,
Can
that's
you hear
good.
yourself? Is that better?
I
That
think so.
should solve the problem, hopefully. If it is something about echoing with the sound. So
I have it every now and again on my phone, actually, and it drives me crazy trying to hear and speak at the same time.
yeah,
So, what is a self tape? A self tape is a way for casting to see you do your audition without being there live. Where a lot of auditions historically have always been live in front in front of a casting director and maybe the director and producer. Um, Now with COVID, everything went to self tapes, and so really if this is really the way for you to get seen by a casting director, so your self tape has to be at least viewable, or they are going to just close it down and go on to the next guy or actor.
right, exactly. Because they've got a lot of people to see. They've got get somebody who's right for the role, and if they're seeing somebody who doesn't quite know how to create a self tape properly, they're gonna probably make a few assumptions. First of all, that the person doesn't know what they're doing. Maybe they're new
Yeah.
to acting, or so obviously you want to get that started correctly straight out of the starting box.
Yeah.
I think I made that one up out of the starting box. I'm looking for a completely different
No, but I mean, it's really
phrase.
true. They have to, like, especially in this now environment, learning how to self tape correctly is essential because it's the way it's done. And it is difficult for many of my actors, both young and old, to try to get the hang of really what it is that creates a good self tape.
Yeah,
And a lot of them are not quite tech savvy. And those that are actually do way better in terms of getting more auditions and getting more opportunities than those that don't know how to do it well.
Right, because there are going to be certain things that are now considered standard because self-tapes are such a common thing.
Yeah.
And there are going to be a few variations as well, depending on the person that they're sending the self-tape to.
Mhm.
Okay, so when does somebody submit a self-tape?
Usually, well, if you have an agent, your agent will be submitting on all of the, different projects that are out there. And casting will then go back to the agent and request a tape for a specific role. And that's generally how most of the actors will get it. Those without agents will self submit and still be asked to self tape if the casting directors are looking outside of the agency communities. So um, usually I get the request and then I send all the information out to my actor about when it's due, what time it's due, how it, all the details of what casting is looking for. I send it then to my actor and expect them to come back with it on time and hopefully early.
Okay. I'm going to ask you about your pet peeves in a while, but the first thing I want to ask is what are casting directors actually looking for in a self tape?
They basically want to see what you can do with the role. It's like auditioning live, really. You're going to make choices about the character. You're going to read all the information that you get from your agent in terms of what the character is like, how that fits into the whole scenario of the project. And you're going to make choices about it. And the casting director is basically seeing, have you made some choices about the character? Do you know how to act in a realistic way? They're basically checking to see, would you fit the criteria that the director or producer has come up with around this role? And so they're going through thousands or hundreds and, hundreds or thousands of tapes to find the right person for the role.
Okay. And so tell me about some of your pet peeves that you have about around self tapes.
I have got so many actually. When this whole thing started to become more oriented towards self tapes, it created an immense amount of work for all agents, and it was daunting at the very beginning because you weren't just giving your information to your guy and they were going into a casting office somewhere. You literally had to put everything together, and then on the end at the end you had to manage sometimes piecing these tapes together. So my major pet peeve is not having this thing in on time. Like if you guys are expecting me to put it all together, put the scenes together, figure out like which scene goes where, because most of them aren't labeled, and then put it together and upload it to the casting director, you better have that to me at least a day in advance, not 15 minutes before the link to upload closes. And so many of my people are delaying, like they've got forever to do the tape. And then 15 minutes before it's due, they send it off to me. And it's like, you know what? The link closes. And literally they all know this. The link closes at a specific time. And if we don't get it loaded by that time, you will not get seen for the role. It makes you look bad. You miss an opportunity. And I look like I can't organize worth a darn because I haven't got your self-tapes in. Yeah. So that's my biggest pet peeve, is people that kind of just leave it till the end. Another pet peeve is not labeling stuff properly. Like if I'm dealing with, 50 or 60 actors that all have self-tapes due, I am not going to be able to open the script and look and see what order your scenes go in, like scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. If you send it off to me with an arbitrary ing whatever, I don't know what it is, and putting it together for you is time consuming that I could be using to get auditions for my actors rather than, editing self-tapes.
So
So
people actually send you stuff to be edited by you?
yeah. Yeah, oh yeah.
They
Oh
they
yeah.
don't edit. They don't even edit their own self-tape.
No, no.
Okay.
Most of them do
Shocking.
not know how to. I'm getting pieces of self-tape texted to me, text. So then I have to, send it to my email to download, to put into a video editor program, and like put it all like, it's just insane. It's insane. So that's a huge pet peeve because I don't have time. Like, I'm now literally working 24/7, just managing self tapes. So that for me is the most, like, I see you giggling there, but it's like, if I don't do it, who's going to do it?
They should be like, the actor should be doing it. Like,
Yeah.
there's no reason why anyone can't do their own editing now. It's like, surely that's a must. Like,
But they don't know how. Honestly, they don't know how.
Hey, look, I'll give a class. I'll sell a class. I almost said give a class. I'm no fool. But I'll sell a class. Right? If you want to know how to edit your own self tapes so that you can help Teri with her stuff, it's so simple, and it's free. Like,
you could, yes, yeah, it is. And I don't have the time to actually teach how to do it. I'm self-taught. I only just figured it out by downloading a video, app and
yeah, no, it's crazy. Like, that's why I couldn't believe that they're sending you the raw footage and getting you to edit it. Like, that is not something
I know
you should be doing. That's crazy.
I know.
Anyway,
I really get it. So that's my, like, big.
That's a big pet peeve. Yeah,
it's like,
that's
if I can figure it out at my, sorry, I want to say my age, but if I can figure out how to download a video app, editing app, and do it, I mean, come on.
Surely they can. Yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe they just
either that, or here's another suggestion. You know how you take 15% of anything that they you might want to renegotiate that if they're getting you to edit their stuff that they're sending you.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry guys, but I mean, it's kind of silly.
I'd actually rather just not do it, to be honest. I'd rather as an agent, I would rather you actually send me or upload directly, which I'm now pushing people to do, upload directly to the links provided on the services that the casting directors have given me the audition for.
Yeah.
And I would say it's starting to happen. I've got a few stragglers that have no clue how to manage this, but in general, a lot of them are now adopting that method. They still come in pieces, and I have to, say, well, please put it together, at least make it scene 1, scene 2, So it's coming, but like, truly, Mark, if you're going to put together a class on this, I will send everybody to you, because we really need, I would really love for somebody to do it so that they're taught what app to download, how to do it, what it takes to do it, how to do it on a phone, how to do it on a desktop, whatever, and then what the process is to load it properly.
Yeah.
So other pet peeves. So I have a lot. Sorry.
We've got all day. That's fine. People can get bored if they don't like them.
Other pet peeves are not following the instructions that the casting director has given regarding how to self-tape. So a lot of times they'll say either a tail slate or a front slate or no slate. So people will like stick it in the front before they go start their scene, and it's really, you need to have it as a tail slate. So I have to go in, edit it out, make a new file to put at the end of the, like, it's 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 like, just read the instructions. Read the instructions, because the casting director is very clear about what they want in order to view the tape, and what order they want it in. So it's just a matter of reading. Just reread and reread before you tape. Make sure you have great lighting. Make sure that you're, like, some people, I'll get tapes where they're like down here, right? And they got all this space above their head, right? Like, and right, exactly, Mark, like that. And they're doing the scene like almost like with like,
put the captions up here.
Yeah. Oh, it's like, I'm sorry. It's just this whole self-tape thing has been like such a nightmare since it began, and it's literally it's taken so much time and energy away from stuff that could be used to promote my actors to casting directors properly. So
see, what you really need is like a one pager that they read and says that, okay, this is the basic setup that you need to do, step one, and then talk about all the things we're going to talk about now, set it up so that it looks right and your lighting is right, and doesn't look like this.
Right. Exactly.
So, do you actually get people that will do self-tapes in the dark like this?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, or too light, where it basically, or the background, they merge with the background somehow.
Yeah.
Or they've got like a billion, like, so you see all the stuff in the background where I am. They got like bookcases and like old laundry and their bed unmade, and it's all in behind you. You can see it. It's like,
awesome. That's so funny. Like, oh. And do these people ever get work? Like, I'm just amazed that
those ones.
Right. Because unless it is part of the actual scene, right?
But it never is. They don't want to see it. It's distracting away from you as an actor, and casting, it hates when there's a lot of stuff in the background. But you know what? I can't even reject the self-tape to say, do it again with a better background most of the time, because they're usually 15 minutes until it's due. Yeah. So I can't even, so it's, I really notice, and I hate to actually admit this, but I notice that when I've had multiple bad self-tapes from someone, I don't want to submit them on stuff. Yeah.
Well,
and
it's
that's
embarrassing.
Really bad.
It looks bad on you as well.
It's unprofessional. It makes us look unprofessional. And so, but I also feel bad because I can have a really brilliant actor, and if they don't know how to self-tape, I don't want to submit them. And it's a shame, because we're losing opportunities that we could actually have gotten had they just taken the time to do, or go to, someone that knows how to self-tape for them, and pay a little bit of money to get a real pro self-tape done. So,
and this is the thing, though. I mean, that takes a lot of forethought, a lot of planning, money, all of these things cost you time and money in order to get it set up so that you do have a professional setup. But I mean, the thing is, you can save so much money and aggro and embarrassment on your part and theirs eventually by like just doing a bit of planning in terms of, shelling out a bit of cash in order to get a decent laptop that will be up to spec, up to speed, so that you can download a free editing program, because you don't need fancy editing. And if you don't know how to edit, it's time to learn some of the very basics. And I'm not just saying this because I want to like promo a class. Like the class idea of like how to edit stuff for, like the basics, that's just off the top of my head, because that's something I do pretty much every day. I'm not a pro editor. I never have been, but I know the basics. And these are things that you need to have in order to the final touches on what
Yeah.
you're doing. You don't need effects. You don't need to do like green screen stuff that like they don't want green screen stuff. Like they
No,
want a
it's actually,
plain
yeah, it's
backdrop.
actually
Like,
quite simple. Once you do it a few times,
mhm.
it's actually quite simple to do it. And I don't know why more actors are not embracing how to manage that. Buying a, like the equipment is, again, it's an investment for sure.
Well, I was
But
going to ask you about that as well. Like, what
yeah,
kind of equipment is necessary? Because, I mean, you did mention a few things. Like, we mentioned backdrop, so we should talk about like the kind of backdrops that you can get. Obviously, you need a camera or
yeah,
even just a laptop that has a camera. But check out the specs of the camera, and you need lighting. So those are the basic things, and I guess maybe four is some space to do
yeah,
it in.
yeah,
So let's start then with the first thing, which I think I mentioned was a backdrop. So what
right.
would you suggest for that?
Okay, so you can, get a backdrop from Amazon or, like there's just so many ways to do it. You can actually even use a sheet, as long as it's ironed and not all wrinkled up, fresh, like something that's fresh from the dry. Iron it, starch it up, and pin it up. The reason it's important to have a backdrop is to just make the focus you as an actor. Make the character is the focus. It's the same thing with headshots. If there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, the eye is going to go there, and it's going to take away from watching you. You want the casting director to look at you, not everything else going on in your room. you know I've watched so many tapes actually of actors wanting to come on board and get represented. I'm looking at the stuff they send me and I'm thinking, wow, like you like live in a disaster area, because I don't want to see your sink. I want to see what you can do. And so it's important to have a very plain background.
Yeah.
In terms of what color, there's a many different recommendations. A lot of people recommend blue. You don't want anything where you're going to disappear into it.
Uh-huh.
So you don't want anything that's going to, be too light if you're a light complexion, too dark if you're a dark complexion. You don't want to wear stuff that's going to merge into the background. So if you got a blue background, do not wear a blue shirt because you're going to be a floating head. So it's sorry. It's just a matter of finding something that suits. I'm okay. I don't care what color personally, as long as it's something that highlights you as the actor and it keeps the focus on you.
Yeah.
Um,
This one I got, I've showed you this one before. This is like it's got a
yeah,
kind of bendy frame thing, and you can see that on the
yeah,
back of it, it's blue.
yeah,
So I can have it up as blue or green,
yeah.
and
Something like that is perfect actually, because there's nothing's going. It can
it's kind of
basically
self-contained.
everything else
Yeah.
disappears.
Yeah, exactly. And you can like clip it up. It's got these little hook things. You can hook it
Yeah,
onto like if you put something in the ceiling or whatever. With this one, I don't have to because I'm in a fairly small booth and I don't have to worry about that. But
right.
you like you say, you need to have something that's not distracting. People are not noticing your dirty washing in the sink or the dirty clothes on your unmade bed or something like that.
Yeah,
And you can't have, because then it just takes away from the focus of what you're
right.
another thing was lighting,
Mm,
because the setup I've got here, it's just a fairly basic a ring light, like an
yeah,
LED ring light that has a holder for my phone, so I can, if I'm doing a piece to camera that I'm going to edit or whatever, I can just put it in there and and then
yeah,
go. So there are lots of different options, right? So the regular one is ring light. There are different sizes of ring light. Some people swear by them. Some people hate them.
A
There,
a lot of my guys are going with ring lights right now because they're fairly inexpensive.
Mhm.
And as long as you're, not overlit or underlit, you want kind of, some you want the casting director to be able to see you,
Yeah.
and so you have to play around with it a bit. A lot of times those actors that have been using ring lights, their self tapes are satisfactory, and so I'm okay with that. I don't think you need to go and have everything lit on all sides. I think a ring light is fine for doing preliminary self tapes, so I'm good with that. But just make sure that the end result, a lot of people just send stuff to me without actually even looking at what they've just filmed, and so yeah, I know. I see your face.
And
So
that's another reason why you need to edit your own stuff, so you can
exactly,
actually
exactly,
go
exactly.
through
It
it.
always comes back to that. You
Yeah.
want to be able to edit so that you actually can take a look at what you've done, make sure that what you filmed is well lit, that everything is in order, that you've got your scenes in the right order, and it's really elementary. That's all I can say about that.
It's basic stuff. So, so we've covered the background, we've covered lighting. There's lots of different options out there, as long as it's something that will light your face from
Yeah,
the front without casting a shadow on you.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
I mean, casting a shadow behind you is not a big deal. That's not a deal breaker.
No, it's not.
But the main thing is that, like you say, they can see you. There's no shadows on you. There's no
Right.
distraction from you in the background. So those are two very main things.
Yeah.
Another thing is, and probably the most important thing, probably is the camera
Sound.
and
Oh,
and sound,
yeah,
of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah, both actually, both.
yeah.
Yeah. So, about the camera, a lot of the new, like iPhones, the 11 plus, or, they have enough like capacity to do a good self tape. I've seen some really excellent self tapes just done on a camera. The one thing you have to remember is you cannot film this way. You have to film this way. And the reason being is when they're actually done, if you film it this way, you've got like two big black bars and you come out really small. You have to film horizontally. A lot of people forget it. So I get tapes that I can't load up properly because they don't come out at the end. And yet again, this is about editing. So if you would, download into your edit program, you would notice that you filmed it this way. Whoops, sorry, I'm a little bit backwards on the camera. And you need to actually film it horizontally, not vertically.
Okay. So it has to be done landscape
Yeah.
as opposed to portrait.
Yes.
My phone's fingerprints all over it. But so it has to be
But a
this. And
phone will
also,
do. A phone will do. You don't need to
yeah,
have a video recorder, or you don't need to.
it
A
doesn't have to
phone
be a
is
camera.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus, and the thing is that I take to heart what you say about capacity, because you've got your iPhone there, and I've always been an Android kind of guy, and a lot of the older Androids from a couple of years ago, they don't have the capacity to record a lot. So when I used to have one of those, I used to have like a Motorola. It would like I'd be halfway through recording something, and then it'd be
Oh,
like
God.
out of memory.
Yeah.
So a lot of the new phones now find out what the capacity is. Like this one will just keep going for ages. I've got like hours of video
Yeah.
on
Me
this
too.
and I love it. And by the
Yeah.
way, this is I don't get paid to promote this. It's an LG Velvet, and I just really loved the look of it and the specs. My main thing was to have something that had the video capacity on it.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about deleting apps, to get new apps in, or deleting videos to record new videos. So
Yeah.
So a lot of the new stuff that's out there on the market, you'll pay a little bit extra for it, but I tell you, it's so worth it.
Yeah, it really is. It really is, because then it makes everything really easy to film. I think people have the hang of what to do to film it, but I don't think they've got the editing capacity. I noticed Matthew's up there kind of listening in.
Matthew said, I'm so glad I edit my own self.
Yeah, and he does. He's just totally got it on. He knows how to do it, and
I'd be interested to know what equipment he uses and also what software he uses too. So Matthew, if you're still watching, we'd like to know what you use.
But he's probably a pro. I bet you he's paid like lots of money to get his programs. So, I think that's the key. It's the key to good self-tapes is like editing and really kind of understanding how to put it together in the end. Because, I've got great actors. I've got guys that, can find readers, people that can actually tape for them, but it's the end result that actually comes out so badly at times. So yeah,
that's the thing. Like, you got to tick all the boxes, right? You got to tick all the boxes, because like you could have the best reader, you could have an awesome phone setup with high quality resolution video, and if there's just one thing wrong, like the background is your bedroom with your unmade bed, but everything else is like that one unchecked box.
Exactly. It really
the thing that does not get you the job.
Yeah. You have to look at what's going to make this thing look pro. And the better your tape looks, the more chances you have of not only just booking the project that we're going for, but being called in for other projects because the casting director is impressed with really what you're producing. Exactly, it's like a no-brainer. You put in one crappy self-tape and they're not going to call you back in. Because they don't want to see another crappy self-tape.
Exactly. So, the Oliphant twins, or at least one of them, says that Premiere Pro is the best. However, and this is the editing software that is industry standard. However, I should say that Premiere Pro does cost money, and you don't need something that high end in order just to edit your self-tape. I mean, if you're going to be editing a movie or a TV show or something, Premiere Pro is going to be,
which they do actually too. They do produce their own stuff. So
right, exactly. So that's something you'd need to have. But if it's just for a self-tape and you're not a pro editor, you don't need, like, there is free stuff out there that you can download that will do the job. It just won't have bells and whistles, right? But you don't really need the bells and whistles because it's all about you, and it's about your acting and what you're giving to the screen. So we covered backgrounds, we covered lighting a little bit, we covered the equipment in terms of the camera that you can use, and the resolution, the quality of the sound as well. On a lot of new phones, new generation phones are great. Of course, on the iPhones, the latest versions of the iPhones are awesome, but also, like I said, a lot of Android stuff is brilliant as well for that. What didn't we cover in terms of
sound? So sound is really important, especially because we're not just dealing with your voice and the actor's voice. We're dealing with the sound of the reader's voice as well. So a lot of times I'm getting self-tapes where I can barely even hear the reader. Like the reader's being very quiet and they're talking, and the actor is responding to something that we don't even know what the reader just said because it's so quiet that we can't hear it. So it's really important to have your reader just kind of a little bit below, but definitely still audible. Because if you're responding to something we can't hear, then again, the context is lost, and we don't understand what your what's going on in the scene. So you make sure your reader is as clear as you are. So also, if you've got a reader with an accent, it's going to distract from your
That's a good point, because whenever I've had friends ask me to read for them, I've asked them, what accent do you want me to do it in? And that's not just me being cocky, like, oh, I'm a dialect coach, I can do different accents. It's because I want to make sure that my whatever accent I'm using is not going to be detracting from them. Because if they're
yeah
doing it, let's say if they're Canadian, or I know people who are Canadian but can also act in other accents, right? That's usually
yeah
why I know them. But I'll know people that have like grown up in Britain, and they can act in a different accent. They can act in an English accent. So then I'm asking, like, well, which accent are you going to be acting in? Because if you're going to be acting in your English accent, I'll just do my English accent. But if you're going to be doing your Canadian accent, which, you might normally be talking in, which some casting directors call no accent, which is dumb in my opinion. Like, there's
yeah, it's an accent.
no such thing as no accent. But hey, that's for another conversation.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to discuss that
We'll discuss
later.
that another day. Like, what does no accent mean? So if it's going to be that, like, you're doing your Canadian accent, I'm going to try to match it, right? I want to
Right.
match your Canadian accent. Or if you're doing it if it's for an American show, I want to match your American accent. Like, I
Yeah.
had one friend who called me up and said, "Oh, can you be a reader for me?" I'm like, "Okay, which accent?" It's like, and she's like, "Well, it doesn't matter." I was like, "Well, it kind of does matter, because if you're talking
Yeah.
like this and you're doing your lines like this and this kind of accent, and then I'm like, well, yes, and I remember, we're brother and sister, and we go back
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
years." It's like, why the fuck is this guy
Yeah.
got a
So the
British accent?
casting director
They're
then
siblings.
the casting director then is going to be focused on who the
Who is
reader
this?
is,
Yeah.
not who the
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Because as a reader, this is another thing. Like, with a reader, you want the reader to be okay, acting, but not acting. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you want them to be acting like naturally, but not overacting and taking over the
Yeah.
show. You want them to kind of be there in the background. They're not just reading the lines like this.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, it's always really good for a reader to get another actor who
Yeah.
understands what it is to have a great reader. Because if you've got a reader that's actually not really even comprehending or what it's like to actually be an actor, then they are going to tend to read in monotone. They'll be overly expressive. Sometimes they'll even read like um, the scene descriptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
walks across the room.
yeah. I've had some tapes where I've got the reader
book.
doing that, and it's like, no, like I have to send that back. So I really always recommend find another actor that's going to do it. If worse comes to worse and you can find no actor and you've got to like rush self-tape, then tape yourself as the reader and try to read against your own. It's very difficult to do it, and I don't really like when people try that on. But if all else fails and you can't get a reader, then at least do that, because at least you're going to get a sense of what the whole scene is about.
Yeah.
So, but there are tons of places. There are tons of places on Facebook and groups for actors that are always out there posting, "Hey, I need a reader for like 2:00 tomorrow. Is anybody available?" And usually there's somebody. So,
Yeah,
I
even
think
in
it's
my
and
own
we have
group, I think a lot of the people watching this are already in my Facebook group. But if you're not, where are you? So my Facebook group is called Talk Like That. So if you go on Facebook and you search for Talk Like That Facebook group, whatever, then you're going to come across it. I don't let everybody in. So if you're not something to do with the acting industry, if you're not an actor or you're not an audiobook narrator or you're not a professional presenter, then I don't always let people in, because I want to make sure that people are there for a good reason, and also I want people who are going to be asking questions and sharing things with other actors and other book narrators and voiceover artists and so on. So if you do join that group, or if you're already, I know some of the people watching are already in my group, if you need a reader, post in the group. Like, don't be afraid to say, hey, I need a reader for tonight or for tomorrow. And, we can connect on Zoom. Is anybody available? And just put a post out there.
Yeah, exactly.
What I wanted people to be able to do is to just ask for a reader and ask them to DM you, right? Send a private message to you so that you can then see who is available and hopefully, connect.
There's usually somebody that will respond. Actors really understand what the deal is, and that it's sometimes difficult to, especially in this environment, to actually find, somebody that can read with you. But I see posts all the time, and where there's can I have a reader for 1 o'clock? And then there's a whole bunch of people saying, yeah, I'm available, no problem, da 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 da. We also have a roster group. For those of you that are on my roster, just post when you need a reader. It's always much, much better to have an actor who's reading for you.
Exactly. And I've asked other actors about this as well, and said, well, how does this compare to, reading your own lines? And they say that it's much better to have an actual live reader there, because then you react. Then you can react to what they've just said. And of course, how that person reads it out, it will, of course, alter how they react to it. Because when it comes to like editing your own voice in, depending on how you do it, it can be difficult with timings, or it can be like the tone's not quite right, the flow isn't right, and this can put you off as well in terms of how you act.
Yeah, that's only for emergency purposes only.
Yeah, it's a last resort.
Like if you get something at 3 a.m. and it's due at 9, but like other than that, they're make every effort to get a reader that is,
that knows what they're
knows
the kinds of challenges involved for you as an actor. So ideally a reader. That's why I mentioned my group, not just because I want more and more people in my group, but because I know there are people in there that are actors and they know what they're doing, as opposed to calling up Uncle Frank, who knows that you've done some stuff on TV or stage. It's like, yeah, sure, I can play that guy. Exactly. So another question I have, which we haven't, it's a slightly more specific one in terms of camera angle and so on. I mean, a couple of questions actually. One is, what kind of, like, are big close-ups okay, or you want medium close-ups, or
I always think, from here to here is usually what the casting director is wanting. So
top of your ribs,
to the top of your head, and fill the screen. Don't leave a whole lot of room above the screen.
Definitely don't have it like this. You don't want too much above you. I know this from my television days. It's like you want headroom, as they call it. You want some space. You want a couple of inches above your head. You don't want to clip off your hair, and you don't want too much. So basically, as long as you can get like maybe 3 fingers in there, then you're good for headroom. And the other thing is, and you said like down to about your, like, just your upper part of your ribs there, like where the bottom of your sternum. Right? That's called the sternum. Up to there. What about my other question is, sitting down or standing up?
A lot of casting directors kind of like standing. Um, First of all, you're always going to see the back of your chair, which is distracting again. And standing sometimes allows just for a better,
Yeah.
it allows you to kind of enunciate a little bit better. You get
Yeah.
more air. It's just
Yeah.
so I've heard casting say that standing is always produces a better result, and I
Yeah.
tend to think that that probably makes
Oh,
sense,
I
actually.
totally agree. I totally agree. I don't know if anybody does their self-tape sitting down. I know that when I first started doing voiceover stuff, I would do it sitting, right? That's how I started off. And then I realized I was stopping and starting and re-recording and and going back and fluffing things. And then the big discovery for me was like, no, stand up. Don't even don't think about sitting down. Like just readjust your microphone and you
Mhm.
stand and do it stand. It changed everything for me
Yeah,
because then you got everything in alignment. I mean, of course,
yeah,
we're talking about voice here as opposed to actually acting in front of a camera, but a lot of the things still ring true because you've got, you know, you've got everything in alignment. You've got your feet are on the ground. You've got a 90-degree angle with your legs. You've got your knees positioned under your hips, and you've got a right angle for the correct position for your voice to come out. And
yeah,
Ryan, don't ever do this. Never reach with your chin because then you're gonna labor your voice, and that's gonna be a disastrous for you. So make sure you've got everything lined up, and also, like you said, when you're standing, you've got more movement and it's more
yeah.
natural, and so on. But of course, I guess if the character's in a wheelchair, that's a different thing. you know,
That's true. Actually, never
yeah,
considered that, but
there
yeah,
are
but
exceptions.
that makes it that's in character then,
There's
right?
simply exceptions.
Because
Yeah,
they're yeah. The other thing too is like be careful of eye lines. Like when you've got a reader, a live reader, make sure the reader is very close to where the camera is, to the side, so that your eye line is to just to the side of the camera. You don't want to like be filming up your nostrils either. Casting doesn't want to see like what's going on up in there. They actually want you to be like focused on who the reader is. And if you don't have a reader in the room, but position somehow the camera angle so that you're actually just slightly off camera. You
yeah,
don't
and
want to be like
exactly. And also,
yeah.
when you're setting up your test, what you can do, something I've done on several occasions quite often, is I point to where I'm looking. So right now, like I quite often, I mean, people will notice I'm not looking at the camera. I'm looking at the image of you, right? Because that's like the natural thing for me to do
Yeah.
is to look at a face. So sometimes, like when I'm looking over here, I'm pointing at the image that I'm looking at. That's a picture. That's the image of me. Now I'm pointing at the image of you, but obviously you can't see where the tip of my finger is. If I'm speaking to the camera where the
Yeah.
green light is, then obviously that's there. So try different angles out to see which one feels right to you before you launch into your several takes of your sides. Like get the
Right.
right angle for you. Like does it look like you're talking to the person? Like if I'm talking over here, could it possibly be that the other person is there? Or maybe it's too direct if I'm talking to the camera, unless it's a monologue. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so set it up to give yourself enough time if you can to set it up to watch it back.
Yeah,
And
I'm wondering if some of my people don't even set it up. Like they basically just fly into it, learn their lines, thinking that's all there is to it, and then
yeah,
just ask somebody to like film. And they're I think having a setup and like taking that like extra 15 to 20 minutes prior to doing your tape to set up and make sure everything is all like good. Take a like little bit of a roll in order to see how is the lighting when I'm standing here, how is my eye line, how is, you know, are there shadows, what's in the background. Just do take that extra time to really see that you've got it set up properly, and before you start into the role.
I've got a couple of comments here, which is going back to the software
What
down
app?
and an app to download, software to download for editing. It's the Oliphant twins again, or one of them. I don't know which one. Says that a friend told them about Actor Trade. So that's one resource. I think that's for editing, but I've not heard of Actor Trade, so it might be referring to something else. I'm just assuming. And also Matthew Carvery says that he uses Blender, and Blender is free. I can tell you that one that I use all the time for video editing is VSDC. So that's V for Victor, VSDC. I use that all the time for editing stuff, and there are a lot of them out there that are pretty good. It's a case of, like, if you're going to go for a free one, usually you can just download it if you've got a decent laptop with good speed, and then try it out for a while. And then if you get used to it and you like using it, then you can always pay for the bells and whistles. And there are different sort of payment plans. Like one I use, it's like you pay like a small amount for a year to be able to use things like green screen keying, stuff like that if you need it. But for all the basics, you don't really need that so much. Okay, so another question I have is, should the actor be off book for the self-tape?
Depends on what country you're from. So in the US, they're fine with you, for the most part, having the sides with you. Here, they're a little bit more strict about being off book. Casting will often say when they're giving us the audition, please be off book. I personally think it shows professionalism when you are off book. The last thing you want is somebody like looking for a line while they're going, as soon as your head goes down, it means you're looking at your script. And it takes away from you, from your role. It just does. In my opinion, I hate it. Whenever I see an actor looking at a script, I hate it. I hate it every time. And so if we're going to want to get out there for series regular roles or large supporting roles on feature films, you need to learn your lines. Normally if it's a large role like that, they're going to give us 3 or 4 days to learn the lines. And if you can't get it together enough to be off book for that, you're not ever going to work as a professional actor, in my opinion.
Right.
Because if you're working on a set, you need to know your lines when you walk on set.
Well, even when you know your lines when you walk on set, in a lot of productions, they're going to be changing those lines on a daily basis. And you're going to be getting different scripts and different colored paper depending on, which version of the script it is. And they could be changing those lines. So even when you've learned your lines, next version of the script that's rewritten, you're probably going to find that a lot of those lines are altered. So you're going to be relearning those lines in your trailer anyway. So if you can show that you are off book and you can do those lines, then that's only going to be another plus for you, because obviously, like you said, if you're obviously reading them from your sides, that's a no-no, and that's going to
it takes away from the method, I think, of creating the character. And as soon as you're searching for lines, you're out of character. I'm sorry, but you are. And
unless it's in the script that he's reading,
right? Exactly. So, if you want to show the casting director in the 2 minutes that you have to prove to her that you're right for this role, you're going to be totally in character the whole time. You're going to make choices. You're going to be in character, and you are not going to be looking for your script to figure out what the character's doing next, because then you're out of character. And in my opinion, it's just unprofessional. And I don't think, in my opinion, anybody's going to book you if you haven't got the ability to be in character when you're auditioning for a role.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's part of the job.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
and
It's part of the job. Like, I personally don't know how anybody memorizes anything, because I'm lucky if I can remember my husband's name, like, most of the time.
you know what? We should do a show on that, get some actors in to tell us about how they learn lines, because we
Yeah.
all do it in different ways, and different things work for different people.
Yeah,
Um,
that's actually a really good idea, because I don't know how most actors memorize the quantity of lines that they have to learn. I don't have the skill, but I think and I believe, like, really it takes practice to learn how to memorize that way.
uh-huh.
And the more that you do it, the better you're going to be at it. And so actors that don't, or have this large gap between one audition to the next, need to stay fresh by practicing all the time, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, great. We'll do a show on that. That'd be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. Catherine Stella Duncan says that if you're off book completely, but change a word or two unintentionally without affecting meaning or flow of speech, how will that be perceived? That's a great question.
It's a really great question, Catherine. So, it's really interesting, because my daughter started acting when she was 11, and she would often kind of just learn the script, and then every now and again it would occur that she would change a word, or just, she was in character and she would just be herself.
Yeah.
And I would constantly, as her mom, like, say, don't change the script is this, you missed a word, you da-da-da-da. And it's really true. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter unless it's like a huge writer and the casting director has said, this needs to be verbatim, no words change, don't alter the script in any form. And there are some writers that are like that, but it hasn't come up a lot, in my opinion. What they're interested in is the flow of the scene. And so, yes, maybe every now and again a word is going to be a little bit different, or the intonation is going to be a little bit different. There's, it's not perceived as a bad thing. I used to think that it was, in my, being so naive as an actor's mom. But even my daughter at that age said, Mom, that's not what matters. It's the character. And it's really true. If the casting director sees the character, that's all that really matters. Great question, Catherine. It really, yeah, it's.
And this is also, I mean, it's a great question for several reasons, because I know that quite often it can also depend on the type of production it is. And like you said, it also depends on the director and so on and so forth, and the author. But then if you're an actor that has come from stage, then quite often with stage, especially if it's Shakespeare, it's like, the words are sacred. You don't.
That's really true.
You don't get one of the words wrong, because this is set in stone.
Yeah.
So I think it does change a little bit when it comes to TV or film, because then the most important thing is about how it's gotten across, how it's interpreted. And like I said earlier, with a lot of big productions, the script is changing on a daily basis, at least. And so, then the
one thing I do want to say, though, is if you're changing a whole sentence, you have to know that's going to screw up your reader totally. So if it's a word here or there, it's not going to affect much. But if you're changing a whole sentence or dropping a whole sentence out of your scene, your reader is going to be totally going, what happened? Well, I don't even know. And it's going to really affect
and even more importantly, if it's your co-actor.
Yeah.
on set
Yeah,
that
yeah,
would
yeah.
throw them to possibly. But I mean, again, it depends. Like if you're, I guess if you're both in that scene and you're being those people and you're getting the main important stuff across, as long as you hit those lines that gets the information that needs to be
Yeah.
said in the right way, then it should be okay. But then certain actors, of course, are going to be like, you know, waiting for that line that is their cue for their line. Maybe they're not quite in there as you are in order to be able to pick up on the fact that you're oh right, yeah, okay, so I need to respond to that
Yeah, well, the director will catch all of that. For self
yeah.
tapes, just be
Oh
aware that your
yeah, of
reader is,
course.
going to need to know where you're at, and so don't go changing a whole lot. But don't worry if a line or a word, is slightly different.
Yeah,
So
it's not. I think that um, most casting directors that are going to see it, they're going to be more concerned about how you get that across, uh,
yeah,
rather than like, oh no, missed out a word.
yeah,
Okay,
they don't.
next, delete.
Yeah.
That's
And
not.
just remember too, casting is looking at the overall, effect that you're bringing to the camera. They don't have the sides in front of them, I think, normally. So they probably wouldn't even notice a change in a word because they don't have the sides in front of them. They're actually watching the tapes.
Okay. Another good question that's come up is, where do you see the future of self tapes going now that things are reopening?
I
Are they
think
here to stay?
that, sorry?
Are they here to stay?
I think they are here to stay. I think commercials will be cast in person again, and film and television, I think will probably be casting like callbacks and screen tests and that sort of thing live. The first, I bet you any money, the first audition will mostly be self-tape from now on. I think it's easier for casting. It's probably less expensive for casting to do all of their preliminary searches
Yeah.
through self tapes. So, and then it'll just for film and TV anyway. And then everything else after that, once there's interest, will probably be live.
Interesting question and a
Mm-hmm.
very interesting response. Okay, thank you so much, Teri. And thanks to everybody that has tuned in to watch live.
Yeah.
And thanks also to the people that will be tuning in later to watch this on replay. Next week, we're going to be, what are we going to be talking about, Teri? Do you remember? What about
Next week
remembering
we're
lines?
talking about. I thought we were going to talk about how how actors prepare for their scenes and what they do to prepare and what
Right.
methods they use.
Yeah, methods, preparation, and so on.
Mhm.
So make sure that you tune in next week, same time. It's Teri Talks Talent, 2:20 on Tuesdays. Bit of
I
alliteration
love
there.
that.
See what I did? And again, ask your questions, but also you can also contribute some stuff from your own experience about how you prepare for your role, what kind of methods you use in order to act your characters and so on. So it's going to be a really interesting one. Really excited to be doing that next week. And yeah, so I'll see everybody next week. Thanks a lot, Teri.
You're very welcome, and we'll see you next week.
Bye,
Everybody
guys.
have a good week. Lots of auditions.